Yankees Files podcast. We are back. I'm Will Harris, your Alec Whipple, and the rest of you are fans of a team that is currently playing spring training games. And my grandma's been asking me, like, Will, how are the Yankees doing? And they're like, 500 or a game above or a game below every time she asks. Spring training results don't matter. What on earth? ESPN just decided it should play out of my computer. That's not how this works. It's not how any of this works. Anyway, spring training results don't matter. The people who play the decisive innings of those games are not going to play Major League Baseball this year. Why do I care? Sincerely, why do I care what what's his name? Jace Avina does in the 8th inning of a spring training. If he hits a go-ahead home run or he grounds into a double play that kills a rally, why do I care? The answer is I don't. Anyway, I didn't mean to go on that rant. Whipple, we're here. We're back. Yankees Files episode 101. Back to normal. How are you doing?
I'm disappointed I'm not hosting. I was so used to it.
You got used to it?
For the last, no, it's like that thing, person who's only listened to one Yankees Files episode. It doesn't seem
they're so confused.
For all of you who only started listening in episode 100, unfortunately, I'm not the full-time host. And
fortunately, maybe they didn't like it. Who knows?
Let us know if you want me to host again. I mean, I'm here. I'm on every episode.
This is not a democracy.
I just got to push back. I think spring training is incredibly important. My go-to
stat, you do. That's true.
Stats. In 2009, look up who the Grapefruit League winner was and just tell me that it doesn't matter, because it does matter. The Yankees won the Grapefruit League. They won the World Series. Actually, I think the last 3 times they've won the Grapefruit League have been 3 pretty good Yankees years. It's 2009, 2017, 2019, or at least 3 of the most recent wins. So we know it really doesn't matter, but it does for all of us just dying for some baseball. And I got to tell you, it scratched the itch. I'm having a great time.
Oh, absolutely.
Games. You're having a great time going to games. I mean, what's the old saying? Was it guys go to Jupiter or girls go to Jupiter? What is it remember guys go to Mars to do something and then girls go to Jupiter to get stupider?
I always heard that boys go to Jupiter to get more stupider because I'm a feminist. But
okay. Well, apparently I'm not. But you went to Jupiter not to get.
I did
to watch the Yankees. After I botched that intro,
I had no idea where that was going. That's awesome. I can't believe I've been coming down here for 3 years now without making that joke. That's amazing. That's a miss on my part. It was
my execution.
It was a ton of fun. I hadn't been to a Yankees baseball game since the one we went to in Baltimore. I think that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Plus
and it absolutely scratched the itch. So I went with my parents. Shout out to my dad, who, is of course the star of Dad Take or Bad Take at times. And so my dad loves the pitch clock, as Dad Take or Bad Take listeners know. So this is the way the whole game went. Pitcher would throw a pitch. He'd observe that the pitch clock was running. He'd go, man, the pitch clock is the greatest thing. And then within the same pitch clock duration, he'd go, needs to be shorter. So it's 18 seconds with a runner on base. And he'd be like, it should be 15. And then the next batter, he'd be like, it should be 13. He'd be like, it should be 13 with a runner on base and 10 without. And then he'd be like, it should be 10 and 5. It just kept going down. At one point, there was a mound visit and he asked why the pitch clock wasn't running. And I was like, because it's a mound visit. Time is out. And he was like, no, pitch clock should keep running. You decide how you want to use it. So he loves
to the mound.
Exactly. He loves and hates the pitch clock, which was funny. I met multiple Yankees Files followers, listeners. Shout out Anthony Ventola. Shout out Rob Sasso. Great to meet you guys. Really cool. Both very nice guys, as all of our listeners are, I'm sure. And it was just great to see baseball again. I got to see Spencer Jones. That was cool. He scored from second on a single. He's fast. He moves a lot faster than I thought he would move. People were kind of complaining about that highlight that got posted of him making that running catch in right center field. They were like, this is just a play a center fielder is supposed to make. He was moving so much faster running the bases. And I was like, man, this is pretty crazy. He did also get picked off. These things happen. I saw our boy Brandon Lockridge. I saw Elijah Dunham. Remember the early 2023 Elijah Dunham discourse? That was a dark time. I saw Gleyber Torres get a hit on an opposite field line drive, which I didn't think was possible. So that was great. And I saw the Yankees win a game. Clark Schmidt pitched great. Will Warren pitched great. I was really impressed with, for as long of a trip as it was, they don't go across the state very often. There were a lot of like Major League Baseball players who made the trip. Obviously Clark Schmidt pitched, Ian Hamilton pitched, Volpe was there, Gleyber was there, Cabrera was there, Pereira was there. Like it was a solid group.
Holmes was there yesterday, so he was also on the trip.
Yep. Yeah.
So I was actually surprised by that too. I thought you were getting a lineup with like Volpe, Wells, and like no one else, but you got a pretty representative lineup of like who you'd expect to be on that trip.
Yeah, none of the vets really, aside from Gleyber and some of the pitchers, but a much better group than I expected to have. I thought it was going to be.
You just want to see Gleyber, so you were.
Yeah, exactly. If they could put Gleyber and 9 Don Kellys in the lineup. If anyone gets that, can you imagine if anyone gets that? You're gonna be 25 Don Kellys.
Maybe now that you're indoctrinating everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, people might be caught up. That's a deep cut, though, even within the batting stance guy lore. If people are getting that one, but hey, good for you if you are.
Shout out Don Kelly.
Shout out Don Kelly. Shout out batting stance guy.
Yep. I was so excited that you were going to the game just because usually I'm on the spring training beat and I kind of assumed that I was going to have to carry it again. But now you were there. I mean, I definitely never been on that side of Florida to see a game, and you saw a pretty great game. You saw Clark Schmidt pitch well and the Yankees win and all sorts of fun things happen. Did Vivas homer? Did someone else homer? Did anyone homer? Am I making...
The Marlins hit the only home run, if I remember correctly. Vivas hit a ball to the wall. He barreled a ball.
Okay, that's sad.
There was there were a couple deep fly balls by the Yankees, but the Marlins, I believe, had the only home run. As I said to someone, the Marlins don't seem all that interested in like scoring runs, which does influence how I think I'm supposed to feel about the pitching performances by Clark and by Warren, but they both looked good, man. Like Will Warren especially was missing bats like crazy. And as disinterested as the Marlins appear in scoring runs, they certainly as a team are reasonably interested in making contact. So that was cool to see. It has me quite bullish on what he could contribute to the team. Yeah, dude, it was just like, it's been months that we've gone without baseball. So to be at what you can legitimately describe as a Yankee game is just a really good feeling.
I think seeing Schmidt is kind of interesting just because I feel like the rotation is such a hot spot right now. And maybe that's something we'll talk about. But I remember we saw Schmidt the last game we went to in July. And definitely
I've seen Clark Schmidt. I saw him pitch at the Orioles home opener. I saw him pitch at the game we went to in Baltimore, and I saw him pitch this past game. I've seen Clark Schmidt start more games than like anyone else in the last few years. It's really weird. It shouldn't work out that way.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, compared to the times you saw him last year, given kind of the importance of the starting pitchers, did you notice, like, I know you say pitch well, but like, what do you think? Like, has he taken a step forward so far?
I mean, he looked very effective. I was kind of down the left field line, so it was hard to read into, movement or anything. I would defer to the StatCast readings on all of that. But the other side of that is like, he was throwing reasonably hard. Like he got the cutter up to 94. The stuff was moving pretty well compared to, his averages this spring. He was getting some swings and misses. he didn't get a ton of swings on the sweeper, but like he was using it and it was moving, and like it was moving more than it has. So look, like I don't know how wise it is to read into like 4 innings
I
of
know, but it's
stuff
the
when
fun of it.
he's working on stuff, but like one thing that I thought was good was the contact management. Like he did not allow himself to get hit hard, and that was really nice. Like it was a ton of weak contact, it was a ton of balls on the ground. He was throwing strikes, like everything that I wanted to see from a guy who was obviously working on stuff. And sure, he allowed a few hard hit balls, but like a lot of them were on the ground. I thought it was a nice outing. I think the concern with Clark, or the two concerns with Clark, are always going to be for me: can he miss enough bats, and can he get lefties out? The answers were no and yes. He was facing Luis Arise, he was facing Josh Bell batting left-handed. Like he was facing real guys. It was just, I'd like to see him strike more guys out, but to go out there to throw strikes, to manage contact pretty well, like those were all nice things to see.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in the spring, obviously, we can't read into performance, but it's still fun. And, I feel like there are definitely things that I want to talk about that I feel like we can at least observe. And that seems to be
Yeah,
one of them so far. He's having a good spring.
absolutely. And I think we should be excited about that. Like, I think that we should be excited about Clark Schmidt independent of his, excuse me, holy cow. I think we should be excited about Clark Schmidt independent of his spring training results. I think he was worth being excited about coming into the spring. I think he still is. It would have taken something really catastrophic, probably from a health perspective, for me to move off of that. He's an effective pitcher. Like, for a big chunk of last year, he was a very reliable arm for the Yankees. And I think Clark Schmidt is a really good number 5 to have. And he doesn't need to be anything more than that. One situation that I've been thinking a lot about is that of Carlos Rodon, who pitched today, allowed some home runs. People freaked out about it. I don't want to talk about any of that. I don't want to talk about his velocity. I don't want to talk about his pitch shape. I don't want to talk about his spring training results. I want to talk about one thing. Is Clark Schmidt the modern day AJ Burnett? Discuss.
He doesn't strike out enough guys. Like, what do you mean?
Did I say
AJ
Clark
Burnett,
Schmidt?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You did say
I meant Carlos Rodon. Is Carlos Rodon the modern day AJ Burnett? Discuss.
I was so confused. I'm like, there's no.
Yeah,
no.
I was still on the prior discussion. Carlos Rodon pitched today. Carlos Rodon allowed a couple of homers. Carlos Rodon has been a hot topic among Yankee fans. I don't want to talk about his performance. I don't want to talk about his health. I don't want to talk about his velocity. I don't really concern myself with these lists. Is Carlos Rodon the modern day AJ Burnett? Discuss.
I feel like AJ Burnett pitched more innings than I think Carlos Rodon will. He was more durable. That's my differentiator. In terms of like hit or miss, like I could see them trending the same way, but I do think like underratedly AJ Burnett was kind of an innings eater in a way that Rodon isn't. So that's my first entry into this discussion. But like there is some comparison, definitely in terms of how they are being viewed as the number 2 starter in their respective rotations.
I feel like this is compelling. Like, you don't feel like he has AJ Burnett vibes? Like, he's the fiery guy. People have really high expectations for him. He was brought in not to be the ace, but to be an expensive, effective number 2 starter. He, to this point, hasn't really delivered, which maybe he's like the reverse AJ Burnett, hopefully, in that respect. He was someone who was really effective before becoming a Yankee. Obviously he's left-handed. Burnett was right-handed, but like kind of like fiery, noticeable. Like I think that Carlos Rodon is very much the modern day AJ Burnett as it relates to like his place in the role he occupies for this team, the personality. Like do you have a better, like, who do you think he is? The modern day Chad Godin? Like, what are we doing here? He's not Mike Messina, I can tell you that much.
Like, in terms of, like, comparison to past Yankees? Because I
Make
feel
a
like...
comparison. Do it.
Geez. Then I just feel like there's some differences. Like, in terms of personality, in terms of what they can bring, yes. But I feel like Rodon is probably, like, at his best, more dominant than Burnett, but he's been
I agree with that.
Worse. Like, I feel like there's such a different range of outcomes. Like, I just feel like AJ Burnett was like good, like okay to good, and then kind of like okay to bad, and he just like never was. He had some really bad stretches, but maybe that's the comparison. Like, I could see it snowballing when it snowballed for Rodon. It did kind of feel like the snowballing of Burnett. Like, AJ Burnett had some really bad months as Yankees. Like, June 2010 was not a fun time to be AJ Burnett. Like,
AJ Burnett once pitched 190.1 innings for the New York Yankees and was worth 0.5 Fangraphs WAR. Do you know how hard it is to throw almost 200 innings and be worth half a win? Like, that's insane.
Wait, now
that was 2011.
AJ Burnett.
And AJ Burnett's best seasons were only 5 wins, I think. Like 5 WAR, that is, to be clear for people who are thinking about pitcher wins.
AJ Burnett in June 2010, his ERA went up 2 points in 5 starts. So 3.2 to 5.
Gross. Oh my gosh. And then it stayed there.
Runs or more 4 of the 5 times. Yeah, it really didn't get better. Then he gave up in August, he gave up 8 runs and 9 runs and 6 runs. And then gave up 7 runs in September.
Wait, I gotta find AJ Burnett, though, for all of our criticism of him. I need his playoff game logs to load. AJ Burnett, with the Yankees down 2-1, right? Yes, down 2-1 in the 2011 ALDS against the Tigers, who had the Yankees number, and it, of course, turned out the next day that the Tigers did indeed have the Yankees number. AJ Burnett, elimination game, goes out 5 2/3, 4 hits, 1 run. Like, what? I remember that. We were freshmen in high school. I remember talking to my dad about it and being like, Burnett's starting, the season is over. Because he was, of course, coming off of what do you have? Like a 5.15 ERA in 2011. And there he is starting game 4 of the ALDS back against the wall. And he delivers a really strong performance. Now, Fip wouldn't smile on it. He walked 4 guys and struck out 3. Do I remember what happened in that the Yankees scored 1 million runs, so it didn't matter? Or are you referring to something else?
The catch, it was like the Granderson over the shoulder catch with the bases loaded in the first.
I don't know if I do.
He had
that, like, might be too deep a cut.
Too deep a cut. He had like the bases loaded in the first inning, or like I'm pretty sure it was the first inning. I'm gonna pull it because you don't know because of the score.
Yeah, so in the bottom of the first, the bases were loaded with 2 outs, and you'll never guess who he was facing.
Don Kelly was that. See, this all comes full circle. It's almost like this was planned.
Yeah, no, I don't remember that catch.
Yeah, bailed him out, and then he pitched fine. But, like, okay, I'm not going to shit on him. Like,
yeah,
AJ Burnett had 3 playoff starts with the Yankees where he gave up 5 or more runs, and then the others he was like,
wait, really did he actually?
Yeah, World Series games 2 or games 5.
Yeah, not World Series game 2. I can tell you that much. World Series game 2 is like the reason people are okay with AJ Burnett's existence.
But he also, like, yeah, he really. They scored 6 runs in that game, and he gave up 6 runs, so they could have clinched that in 5.
That's a good point.
And then ALCS Game 4 in 2010 was like personally a game I remember to be heartbreaking because that was like the Benji Molina home run.
The Benji Molina home run is awful, but the thing about the 2010 ALCS is the Yankees were always going to lose that game. Or the Yankees were always going to lose that series. And the reason the Yankees were always going to lose that series is they didn't have Cliff Lee. So I like that. I've completely written off the 2010 ALCS as something that I'm letting bother me, because the thing that should bother you is them not having Cliff Lee. What happened after they didn't have Cliff Lee? Kind of irrelevant, because we knew it was coming.
I contended that that team was their best team.
It might have been
post 2009. That team was underratedly good.
That team was very good.
Anyway, we have gone so far off field.
Well, I mean, look, we had to discuss if Carlos Rodon or Clark Schmidt was AJ Burnett.
Clark Schmidt definitely no. Carlos Rodon, it's going to have the same vibe of like, you're going to love him one day and you're probably going to hate him one day. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know how much you're a believer in this, but I mean, I just think he's going to be overall a Burnett level 2009 pitcher, which was a really good pitcher. It wasn't
I think
it wasn't easy, but he was a very good pitcher.
I think Carlos Rodon is one of the most underrated players in Major League Baseball right now. I think people are writing off an injury-riddled season as if this guy has never come back from injury to be dominant before. And he's healthy. We know he is really good at getting batters out when he's healthy. And the velocity is there for the most part. I know some people were reading into it today. I'm going to believe in him. If he goes out there this season and has a bad year while healthy, okay, we can talk about if there might be, a deeper issue. But to use last year to decide that this guy has, or last year in like 5 spring training innings to decide that this guy has nothing left, well, then I hope you've given up on Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Like, he gave up 6 hits and 5 runs in 3 innings today or something. Like, I guess he's never going to be good, right? Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if he had signed with the Yankees and then had that start?
This podcast tonight would basically just be us talking for an hour about how people need to calm down about it.
It would be complete damage control.
It would be so bad. It's almost enough to make me happy they didn't sign him. Almost.
I tweeted good choice by Yamamoto, because if he had done that, I legitimately believe that someone would have sent Brian Cashman and probably Yamamoto as well, a death threat that the police actually have to investigate. If that had happened, people would be talking so much about Kei Igawa today, and by the way, career leader in innings in AAA for the New York Yankees, Kei Igawa. That's a dubious honor.
Shout out Kei Igawa. We should talk more about him.
Shout out Kei Igawa. To wear sunglasses while he was pitching.
Maybe, yeah. Let's not talk more about him right now, but just in the general sense.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
You know who I'm excited about though in the rotation? I'm loving Marcus Stroman so far. I'll be honest.
Talk to me.
I feel like I was a little bit hesitant just because I saw the value, but it was more okay, as long as there's someone else, and clearly there wasn't going to be someone else. I was okay, I can live with it. It makes sense. But I watched some of the first game, but I watched all of the second game he pitched.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's what the Yankees need right now. It was so efficient. The demeanor on the mound was great. He was just mowing through guys, 4 innings.
If he keeps the walks down like he has in these first couple games, that could be a real game changer. That would be really exciting.
People forget how good he was at the beginning of last year. And that's not even okay, I understand if you're skeptical of Rodon because he didn't show anything last year, but Marcus Stroman was legitimately one of the best pitchers in the National League, clearly got hurt. If you're going to be skeptical of a guy because of injury stuff, like, I feel like that's such a lower bar to meet because he showed how good he was and the correlation with the injury was so clear. And the way he's come in, I mean, the enthusiasm obviously has been great, but just like the way he has pitched in his 2 starts, I just feel like the Yankees need a guy. If you're going to have Rodon, you need the guy who's just going to go out and give you your 6 to 7 innings. You know, you're not going to strike out a lot of people, but you're going to get a lot of ground balls with a good infield defense, and you're going to be efficient. And we saw it last year when the Yankees rely too heavily on their bullpen. Sometimes that leads to trouble. The best way to utilize this bullpen, I think, is to have obviously guys like Cole, but I think Stroman is the perfect complement. Like, it's not the ace level up, but that's what we need.
I like that Marcus Stroman is like the stretched out version of the typical Yankees reliever. Like, he probably walks a few fewer guys and he strikes out a few fewer guys, but he just goes out there, he gets ground balls, and that's it. Like, if you mashed like Ian Hamilton and Wandy Peralta together and had them go out and like start games, you'd have basically, you'd have to make him shorter and you'd have to bias toward the Ian Hamilton so he's right-handed, but like, you'd have Marcus Stroman. And that's an effective type of pitcher. I think, you know, the concern with Stroman, aside from durability, which, like, look, if Marcus Stroman throws 140 quality innings, like, I'm not really worried about that. With the pitching depth that the Yankees have in Luke Weaver, Will Warren, Luis Gil, like, they don't need a bunch of guys to throw 180 or 200 innings. They just don't. So if Marcus Stroman goes out and gives you 140 innings of just quality ball, you're going to be happy. Concern, obviously, BABIP. Like, the ground ball approach, there are going to be some games where balls are just getting through. And as rigorous as you are about defensive positioning, and as, you know, as good as Stroman is in any given start at managing contact, like, that's going to happen and we're going to have to deal with it. And it's going to look the way it looks when Clay Holmes like has a bad outing, which is just like some weak contact gets through or lands in the outfield. But I like it. And honestly, I think that Marcus Stroman might be more responsible than anyone else for Jordan Montgomery still being on the market. The deal that Marcus Stroman got to be basically at like, what, 30 fewer innings, the guy that we expect Jordan Montgomery to be, has to be a really bad thing for Jordan Montgomery. But flip side of that, if you're a Yankee fan, is that's the guy to be excited about. Like, you'd be excited if the Yankees got Jordan Montgomery, so you should be excited about what Marcus Stroman can bring to the team. They profile super, super similarly.
Yeah, and I think with a guy with a sinker like him, I mean, one thing I think is, like, we don't really know what Oswald Peraza's situation is going to be, but if he's on the team, if he makes the roster, and you're running out an infield defense, say like Peraza plays on Stroman days, and you have Volpe, Peraza, Torres, Rizzo, I mean, like, that's perfect for Stroman. I mean, there will be BABIP issues, but like, that's as good as of a defense as the Yankees have had their infield in a long time. So I feel like it's very set up to like optimize his sinker and his ground ball approach, even though it's not flawless. And, you know, we get mad at Clay Holmes, or not we, but like,
we don't
get mad at Clay Holmes.
We're
but, like,
smart.
Clay Holmes is really good. Yeah. Like, if Marcus Stroman is the Clay Holmes of the Yankees rotation, like, we're going to be in a good spot.
On the topic of guys who have put up spring training numbers we're excited about, Anthony Rizzo came into today with a 356 WRC plus this spring, a 31% walk rate, and a 15% strikeout rate. Look, I don't think it makes any sense for us to be reading into spring training results as predictive of regular season results. But I do think it's great that Anthony Rizzo is hitting the ball hard, in the air, and over the fence, because that is not something we saw him do from the collision to the time he shut it down last year. And if you want to make the argument that if Anthony Rizzo had gone down to AAA or AA, he would have raked, even with the post-concussion stuff, there's no counterfactual there, so I'll have to let you make it. But Anthony Rizzo appearing healthy, making good decisions at the plate, and driving the ball are all things that I was hoping to see this season to make me feel confident that Anthony Rizzo didn't completely lose it and that we can expect something like the Anthony Rizzo we're familiar with, even if it's not 2022 through collision Anthony Rizzo, who was like a top 15 hitter in the game. And I think that's worth being excited about. Like, Anthony Rizzo doesn't have to be the second best player or the second best hitter on this team, which for much of his Yankees tenure, that was kind of the expectation of him, especially during the Stanton decline and before I think everyone understood how good Gleyber Torres is. Anthony Rizzo we can get by with Anthony Rizzo being what? The fourth best hitter on this team? Like, at, who knows what happens with Stanton and LeMahieu? He could even be sixth and things could be fine. Like, for him to show up and look like he hasn't missed a beat, again, I don't know that there's predictive value, but it's just comforting.
Yeah. And I think, like, especially with the health concerns, like, that's more important and more predictive. Like, if somebody is feeling good and not having concussion symptoms, like, I don't really care they're hitting, but like, if they're like, obviously that's going to be predictive of their injury because they're injured. Like, I feel like that's the only thing we know right now. If a guy's healthy, like, that's the takeaway. And it's great that he's hitting. I think for him, it's even more important just because his issues were so related to like his vision and awareness of pitches and ability to react. So like, I do think it is more predictive than like the average, player we're watching, because like that stuff is kind of more easy to see. Like, it would be very evident because we saw it for so long last year if he wasn't okay. And I think the underlying thing to remember is, and we've talked about a lot, that Anthony Rizzo he's not expected to be the second best hitter. He's not projected to be the second best hitter. Every positive, division winning 100 win or, whatever projection system you want to use that is evidence of the Yankees' success this year, they have it already baked in that Anthony Rizzo is going to be an average to below average player. So like, if he is that, then that's fine. If he's better, you're ahead of the curve. Like, that's just how good Juan Soto how good he is and what he has added to this team, plus the emergence of, some of the younger guys and Gleyber properly getting recognition, et cetera. Like, I think that just has to be the beat we got to keep walking to, or keep marching, keep hitting the drum. I'm like mixing.
You're doing great with sayings today. Anthony Rizzo's steamer projection is for a 114 WRC plus and 1.4 Fangraphs WAR. That's the most bullish projection of the ones that Fangraphs maintains for him. And as you said, that's baked into all these projections that say the Yankees are going to be really good. So we would be wise to manage our expectations for Anthony Rizzo as we compare him to 2022 Rizzo through the collision, but we would also be foolish to expect that we should have post Memorial Day Anthony Rizzo forever.
Can we talk about Juan Soto?
Of course. Juan Soto's really good. like this is I was trying to think. Ryan Garcia, I think it must have been Ryan Garcia, shortly after the Soto trade, tweeted something like, I can't remember the last time the Yankees had the best left-handed hitter in baseball, or I can't remember the last time the Yankees had the best Dominican hitter in baseball, something along those lines. Yeah, those both sound like Ryan, honestly. And so that theme kind of has me thinking about like, questions of that nature. So Juan Soto came into this afternoon's, I know times of day, promise. Juan Soto came into this afternoon spring training game with like a 529 WRC plus, walking twice as much as he strikes out. Batting 667 with a WOBA. So here's an interesting fact. You know how FIP can sometimes be negative, and you're like, how is that possible if FIP is scaled by ERA? Well, WOBA is on the on-base percentage scale, and coming into today's game, Juan Soto's WOBA this spring was over 1,000, which of course is not possible on the on base percentage scale. So that was kind of cool. Like, what a joy to watch. He just destroys the ball all over the place. I mean, the home run he hit off the scoreboard in left center, like, since when are left-handed hitters doing that?
I thought that was impressive. I thought the Chad Green home run was like even more impressive, just because I was like I just feel like when you watch hitters, sometimes you're like, all right, like this isn't their at bat. And I really was just like, he had a double in the first. It's not his at bat, and then he hit a ball up by like his shoulders. I was like, okay, fly out, and then it's out, and like, it's crazy. I just like, I feel like just in the way that like watching someone like a good pitcher, like a Garrett Cole, just to pull a random name out of the hat, is like watching an artist at work. It's hard to like always feel that way about a hitter, just because like you see them for less time. It's like probably total time, 4 at bats in a game. I don't know, like 8 minutes, 9 minutes, if that. But like, it's like he's an artist at the plate. He's moving around. He's shuffling. His eye is so good. And like, I'm like, yeah, he's not going to swing at bad pitches. I've never had confidence in a hitter. I mean, I've watched Juan Soto. Like, I went to enough Nationals games, but like, I didn't really care as much. I was just like, oh, it's Juan Soto. Now I'm like invested in it. I'm like, I've never had this much confidence in a hitter's swing decision. Like, I know that's his thing, but watching it when he's on your team is so different.
No, that's a great point. And I think, for a long time in baseball, there's been this discussion of like, to what extent are results dictated by the pitcher and to what extent are results dictated by the hitter. And I forget what the rule of thumb that they've come to on that is, but in Juan Soto's at bats, it always feels like the result is completely dictated by Juan Soto. And part of that is the eye. Part of that is the elite ability, because of that eye, to choose to swing at pitches that he knows he can crush. Part of that is the elite ability to crush pitches that he swings at because he knows he can crush them. Like, he's such a complete hitter in that way that he's going to make phenomenal swing decisions and he's going to maximize the results of those swing decisions. And like, Cole was talking the other day about like, it's so fun to watch Soto and I'm so glad I don't have to face him. It just seems like a war to face him. And I have no idea. Obviously, whatever it is, 58% of the time or something this year, the pitcher will win. And watching him this spring, it's like almost unfathomable that will happen. And he's gotten some good BABIP luck. Like, there was the ball that he hit in the gap that probably should have been caught. There was the grounder through the right side, or through the between second base and shortstop that probably shouldn't have gotten through, stuff like that. But like, you just watch him take these at bats and it's surgical. Like, his, as you said, his eye is incredible, and then his ability to do damage when he chooses to swing is just really, really good. And it's so funny. I don't know. I think this juxtaposition will get like clearer and clearer throughout the year. It's so interesting watching him and Judge back to back, because I could totally be wrong about this. I'll preface with that. But Aaron Judge is this incredible physical specimen. And some of Aaron Judge's propensity to do damage when he makes contact, I think, must be influenced by just his mass. It is in some ways more impressive to me that Juan Soto like crushes the ball so often when he swings at it, because he doesn't have as much of the natural advantage that Judge does. So I'm almost more impressed when I watch Soto, because like, Judge swings and he hits the ball and you're like, well, it makes sense that he hit that, 115 miles an hour. Like, that's what Aaron Judge does. With Soto, it seems, and obviously Judge's eye is phenomenal. His swing decisions are phenomenal. His ability to barrel up so many of the balls he swings at is incredible. And we shouldn't discount that. But there's something about when Soto does it that I'm just like it's as if he is more than the sum of his parts by like a quite a large degree. And I think that's just so cool. And then you obviously layer in how young he is, and it's like he is entering the season for him age-wise in which Aaron Judge won Rookie of the Year. Like, that's unbelievable. It's his walk year.
It's crazy. And I think, yeah, I was literally going to say the thing about Judge. I mean, kind of related, just like, because my observation of Judge is like partly that, partly I just feel like it's more, I mean, it's a great eye, but there's a lot of it's like the pitcher is like, he's good at hitting mistakes. The pitcher's like afraid, there's a lot of fear, I think, built into like the physical mass, kind of like the power.
I would be scared.
Right. Anyone would be scared. It's like, that's normal in baseball. Like, your good hitters hit mistakes and the pitchers have to pitch around them. But I feel like Soto is like Judge doesn't control the at bat like that. Judge like still feels like he's responding and capitalizing on mistakes. I just feel like Soto is like he's almost like drawing out the mistake. He's like, he's the one. He's like, all right, like, I'm just going to sit here until I see something. And then I'm going to be the one who chooses when to swing. It's like, so different than like any other like good, like, I mean, most good hitters in baseball. I don't know. It just seems like fear. There's not a lot of, I mean, there's fear in the pitcher's part, but like Soto's like completing his like artistry. He's in control more than like he's responding to like pitchers being afraid to throw him pitches. Like I don't know. It's like you hit on it. Like he's just doing things at a young age that are unprecedented. And now he's a New York Yankee. Like, that's
it's going to
cool.
be so fun to watch Juan Soto all year.
The fact that we're having a conversation in spring training about Aaron Judge that isn't just like Judge is better than everyone on the team and everything. Like, aren't we so glad we have Aaron Judge? That feels like weird, but I'm glad we can have it.
Big deal. First of all, we are so glad we have Aaron Judge, to be clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a huge deal that there is a guy on the team. Like, we're going to do our season prediction episode in a couple weeks. There's a guy on the team who it makes sense to pick for MVP and to pick for like who might lead the team in WAR, who's not Aaron Judge. And that's insane. We're talking about like Aaron Judge is going to be phenomenal. There's no question about that. But so is Juan Soto. And that's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. I think the energy he brings is like, just layer that on top of this. I mean, it's exactly what this team needed. I think this team needed everything he provides offensively, but like just having that, like, like Stanton and Judge, like that feeling we had at the initial Stanton and Judge era, like it feels like that, but like times 10 and like on steroids. I mean, it's just, they're having so much fun right now, like back to back in the lineup. I have a hard time seeing how this is not going to be an insanely successful pairing. And you know what? Like, as we said, that literally will dictate the fate of this lineup. Like, you could have 7 average guys, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge. It's going to be a really good lineup.
Would you say you feel sorry for the baseballs?
I feel sorry for the pitchers who are going to have to like,
that's
figure out how to get Juan Soto out, and the baseballs. Like, maybe that's the difference. Like, Aaron Judge hits baseballs hard, but Juan Soto is just a menace at the plate and then also hits baseballs hard. But Aaron Judge also is good at the plate. Like, so it's,
it's like, incredible. And I think like what I don't want us to perpetuate on this show is, remember even in 2022 when Aaron Judge was competing for a batting title, they had that article in The Athletic where they anonymously surveyed major league players and they were like, who would you want up in the bottom of the 9th, so on and so forth. And even still, while Aaron Judge was experiencing a season in which he would hit 311, guys were like, oh, well, you don't want like a home run or strikeout guy like Judge up there. Like, I don't want us to perpetuate that. If Aaron Judge, like, in fact, Aaron Judge is more likely to lead this team in batting average than I think anyone else on the team. I'd probably project Soto 3rd, because I think Gleyber Torres will hit for a very high average this year, and like Soto just like walks a lot. Anyway, I don't want us to perpetuate narratives about Aaron Judge that are wrong. But you're right to say, like, Soto and Judge find routes to being dominant players offensively that are different. And it's really cool, and I'm very glad they're both Yankees, and I'm very excited about it. Whipple, we're gonna do rapid fire here as we get wrapped up. I posted some polls on Twitter earlier. Just, every so often I like to gauge how people think about baseball. So I'll throw a question out there, I'll throw a poll out there. So your options for responses for how much you agree with the following statements are not at all, a little, or a lot. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I believe in the importance of good clubhouse guys. Good clubhouse guys in quotes.
A little.
Okay. I believe in the importance of lineup balance as it relates to handedness.
A little.
I believe in the importance of lineup balance as it relates to guys with different approaches at the plate or different offensive profiles.
Not at all.
I believe in a manager's effect on a team's ultimate win-loss record.
A little.
I believe in hot and cold streaks being predictive, meaning if a player is hot, he'll remain hot, and if he's cold, he'll remain cold.
Not at all.
For some period of time.
Not at all.
I believe that lineup consistency causes teams to perform better.
What is lineup?
So the guy, like, referring to the guy hitting first hits first, the guy hitting second hits second.
Not at all. Like, actually, to a much higher degree of any of those.
Yeah. All right, that's it. I think that the right answer to all those questions is either a little or not at all.
Okay.
So I'm glad. It to me, you passed the test.
The only one I was like kind of tempted is the probably the clubhouse guys, but like it's hard to say, like, because I feel like it has an effect, but like, does it translate to winning games? I really can't go that far. And the manager stuff, like, I know we kind of disagree on that, but I think in the last few years, I've definitely revised, I think, closer to your level, which is like kind of tracks with like 3 years ago. I was like very much get rid of Boone, and I think I've come down from that. That's growth.
That is growth, and I'm proud of you. I think on clubhouse guys, like, makeup is something that people talk about in prospect evaluation, and obviously you want guys who are, liked and respected and easy to be around because, like, you spend all this time with these people. Like, a lot of, like, we have both worked in consulting, and a lot of consulting firms talk about, like, we won't hire you if we wouldn't be okay, like, waiting for a delayed flight with you. And like, very much like players are stuck with each other throughout the year. But like, suppose there's a 5-WAR player who's a bad clubhouse guy and a 2-WAR player who's a good clubhouse guy. Like, this is where I just can't, I can't buy like the chemistry argument. So I don't know where I ultimately come down on it, but it's very much the same thing as, like, okay, you're telling me a manager is worth 6 wins, so I could just go get a good manager, or I could go get Mookie Betts, and those are the same. Like, when you think about it that way, and maybe I'm oversimplifying, but like, when you think about it that way, it becomes a little harder for me to buy. But I don't think there's nothing to the clubhouse dynamics. So anyway, I just wanted to gauge what people were thinking about that.
Yeah, I think it's like you never hear about the last place team that's having a great time, and you never hear about, I mean, maybe sometimes you hear about the first place team that hates each other, but usually it ends with like, it ends with like positivity. I mean, I think the last place team that's like having a blast playing baseball, that's the 0% times in Major League history.
Exactly.
Like, the Nationals last year just had such a fun time. They loved each other. CJ Abrams is like the glue guy. That narrative only started when coincidentally the guy started playing better. So that's. And the lineup construction thing is like, I have never believed once in my life that actually affects. Like, maybe Aaron Judge prefers to hit first or second or third or whatever, but like, at the end of the day, like, he's not going to suddenly bat fourth or fifth and then be like, today I feel uncomfortable against the current matchup and strike out 3 times.
No,
So anyway,
it's
that's
ridiculous. Yeah, I'm with you. All right, Whipple. Why don't you tell the people what you're doing next week?
I'm going down to Tampa. I'll be in Tampa from Sunday to Wednesday. I'm going to go to Clearwater in the split squad game. I'm going to go to Dunedin in the regular time game. I think that's Tuesday. And then going to see the Braves and the Red Sox at home at the Steinbrenner Field. So I will be active on Twitter. I'll post where I'm sitting. If anyone's at the games, wants to stop by and see me and friend of, guest of, honored member of Dad Take or Bad Take, Doug Whipple, he will be there. He is, let me tell you, like I was going to save it for parting shots, but I could just loop it in now. The Doug Whipple comeback story continues. He called me the other day and he's telling me the value of slugging percentage. So he compares in the book, I guess they're talking about DJ LeMahieu versus Nolan Arenado in 2017 and how they had the same average and on-base percentage, but only one guy got MVP votes. It was Arenado because his slugging percentage was a lot higher. He said, you know, it's not just all about how many hits they get, it's what the kind of hits are. And he's telling me like how like each hit is weighted, you know, obviously like singles, doubles, triples, and like OP or slugging percentage calculation. He's like, I'm going to read about WOBA now. I am excited to spend 4 days and tap into his mind because he's on the trail, and this might be a new baseball viewing experience for me. If you want to meet the new and improved Doug Whipple and hear about his new appreciation for statistics. Oh, the other thing he's talking about, like how nobody valued on base percentage in like the 1970s, how Gene Tennis had like a 380 on base percentage and no one signed him. He's like, that just wouldn't happen today. So if you want to taste this for yourself, we'll be there and happy to interact with people. But I'm more intrigued of what I'm getting into because as listeners of Dad Take or Bad Take know, Doug Whipple is a vibes guy. But this and year 4 of our beloved Dad Take or Bad Take, the tides might be turning. There might be a new paradigm, and I will have to let Mitch Harris know because I think his soul reign. I'm not going to say Doug Whipple's going to take the crown, but Mitch's sole reign as like the stats hot take guy, the informed member, it might be ending. Doug Whipple is on the hunt.
Well, that would be quite something. I know my dad is on notice, so we'll see what goes down. All right, Whipple, we're gonna wrap this thing up. Before we do, maybe that was your parting shot, but any other parting shots?
No, I'm gonna go, solely in the Doug Whipple camp. I'm, when we do our predictions, he'll get my vote for comeback player of the year. Not Carlos Rodon, although that might be a close second.
Great. Well, go say hello to the Whipples if you are at any of those games this coming week. Thank you to Rob and Anthony who came and said hello to me at the game the other day. Great to meet you guys. People know they can keep up with us at YankeesFiles.com. They can follow us on Twitter. We're at YankeesFiles. Can keep up with the podcast wherever they get their podcasts. The added bonus of video on Spotify. And the videos, of course, go up on our YouTube. We're at YankeesFiles as well. YankeesFiles podcast on TikTok if you want to check us out there. If you like the podcast, we hope you'll rate, review, subscribe, download, do all that stuff. If you don't like it, we hope you'll just subscribe and download and juice those numbers. We don't need your negativity on the internet. Thank you. We'll be back here, similar time, similar place in a couple weeks when Whipple's back from Florida. And until then, let's go Yankees.